I only have eyes for you. Someone. Yo, I wish I had backup singers, but I don't have backup singers. But today, the reason I'm singing that classic song by the Flamingos, which, you know, pretty sure a lot of people heard the song before, but maybe they never really knew who it was. You know, a lot of us are younger, you know, I'm, you know, not that old. So, you know, you're talking about stuff that it was in like the, you know, 50s and 40s and 30s. But today we're going to be talking about a music form called doo-wop. Everybody knows doo-wop, even if you're not from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever time period, the 90s, you should know they still did doo-wop. And doo-wop is a style of rhythm and blues, and you know, it was and also part of rock and roll. And this became very, very, very popular, you know, in the, I would like to say, like the 1950s and the 1960s. So doo-wop is very unique, in which the structure is, you know, shaped off of, you know, one lead tenor singer, and you know, the singers have a melody in the song that they sing, and while they sing that, the background singers, which is usually like 3 to 4 people, could be more, sometimes could be less, depending on where you're at. You know, they harmonize in the background, and that's what makes doo-wop such a unique art form and a music that African Americans created. You know, we created a lot of things, a lot of musics, you know, whether it be rock and roll, jazz, blues, house music, breakdance and techno, all kind of stuff. But like I said, so usually it's one lead singer, which is the tenor singer, and he has backup that doo-wops, or you know, basically makes the noises and sounds of instruments, or sings behind them and backs him up. So with the harmonizing of the background singers and then the lead singers, the word doo-wop was coined, and it was because of the sounds and the background singers, you know, that they would harmonize with the lead singer. So I wish I had more people here to do it, but I can't, because there's only one person, so I can only sing one time at a time. So it would basically be like, let's make up a song, like, you know, I love you, and then maybe there would be somebody in the background that would be like, actually, that's a good one. That's like from the 50s or something, I want to say, but I listen to it sometimes. But it's like this, why do we fall in love? It goes something like that. For my people that may be outside of you know, America, might not know exactly what I'm talking about and never heard doo-wopping before. You probably have, but you just didn't know it was a genre of its own. So doo-wop was founded in the early 1930s, in which the Mills Brothers were one of the most famous and recorded, and they imitated instrument strings, which, when they recorded instrument strings, it was something brand new. A lot of people like never had heard something like that, to where they would just, you know, imitate instrument strings. And, you know, they did this with their voice, and they did it a lot, you know, with their voice, and people were very amazed by it. It was something brand new and fresh, and a lot of people really loved it. And this style, you know, inspired the 1970s group, as we know, the famous group, The Temptations. They did a lot. I love The Temptations. My parents listened to Temptations all the time. Actually, my dad, my mom, you know, they listen to stuff from like the 30s and 40s. My grandmother, of course, she listens. She's from the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s era. So she listens to, actually, one grandparent on one side and my other two grandparents on the other side. They all listen to a lot of doo-wop, a lot of jazz, a lot of rock and roll, a lot of blues, you know, all these African-American, or music's created by African-Americans. They listen to all that stuff in that time period, a lot of jazz as well, and you know, soul and funk and things of that nature, which is a little bit later, but soul was around that time, but funk was a little bit later. So there was also a lot of women groups that saw this, and a lot of women that, you know, wanted to be a part of the doo-wopping. So there was actually a thing called a female doo-wop school, or a school doo-wop, and it was famous people like Patti LaBelle, famous women like Patti LaBelle came out of this, you know, era, and also other women groups. Now, doo-wop became very popular in cities like Chicago, Detroit, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and New York, and other East Coast cities in the Midwest, and you know, East Coast cities and the Midwest. And this is due to little access of instruments. So, you know, this was a very perfect way for, you know, people to use their voices and not have to buy a lot of expensive instruments, which was not very available in the inner cities at, you know, at that time. So most groups would gather in areas, you know, most groups would gather in areas that would echo. So they would gather in hallways or maybe under bridges, and they would doo-wop there and they would practice. And then they would go out to, which is very famous in a lot of black movies, especially in like New Jack City and a couple other black movies like in the 90s and 80s and stuff like that, where, and still to this day, you will see brothers that will be out on the corner and they'll be doo-wopping, or they'll go to talent shows, but they're doo-wopping. So, you know, you've seen them. For instance, like I just sang, they'll be on the side of the corner and it'll be like 2 or 3 brothers, and then there'll be one lead singer that will be singing something like, you know, I can't sing, but let's just try, whatever. It'll be like, you know, I love all African people. I love all African people. And maybe the back would be like, boom, bop, bop, boom, 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 eh, da, 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 eh. You know what I'm saying? Da, ya, da, 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 eh. And maybe sometimes, you know, they would lead, you know, I'm not the best at it, but I'm just saying this is for example. So that is how the sequence and how doo-wop is you know, sang, and what makes doo-wop doo-wop. It's the lead singer and then people in the background, you know, to put it in a nutshell, that are mimicking instruments or mimicking you know, strings of instruments, or just words in general, or backing up the words that the main person said, for people that are new to doo-wop or have heard it but never really understood what made doo-wop doo-wop, if you knew it was doo-wop. So you know, let's see, can I think about any other songs? Let's see, can I think about any other songs? Not really. So anyways, to keep it going, you know, a lot of the smaller record labels love this, especially a lot of the small record labels love this, because it was a very effective way to make records and to make a lot of hits without having a live band, or I mean, I don't want to say a live band, but a big, huge band with all the different kind of instruments that were needed at the time. And, you know, you could only, or you will, excuse me, not you could only, but you would only need 1 or 2 instruments, and the rest, the backup, you know, or the doo-wop part of the doo-wop band, they could sing it, and then you had the lead singer. And this was, you know, a very signature sound at that time. You know, a lot of times, like I used to say, it's funny because my cousin said this too, but I've even said it before when I listened to it, you know, every time period captures its music, and this depends on the recording equipment at the time and how good it was, and also to the style of music that it was, because, you know, a lot of times there wasn't an advancement of like treble and like mixing and stuff like there is nowadays. I'm not saying it wasn't then, but I'm just saying it wasn't as advanced as it is now. So there was a lot of little tricks and trades that you had to do back then that you might not have to do today, and people take for granted today, even with programs in our laptop, rather than having like a big, you know, piece of equipment that was, you know, going to do the same thing that you can get a virtual program that's not even physical in your laptop now, or even maybe even in your iPhone now. I heard they have MPCs on iPhones now, and people are DJing off iPhones, like, you know. So it led to a sound that was very ghostly, you know, like it sounded like a haunted, you know, around that time, you know, where they make movies where it sounds like haunted houses. It just sounds like it was a very deep, a beautiful sound. You know, that's why I really love music from like the 30s and 40s and 50s. I listen to a lot of soul, a lot of funk. You know, I listen to a lot of old soul. I listen to a lot of doo-wopping too. I like doo-wopping. You know, I grew up on it. My mom listened to it, my dad, and you know, my grandparents always listened to it. So, you know, me being the next generation, I pass it down. Now, obviously, we compile on top of it, like hip hop, R&B, you know, house. All this stuff comes from our past. That's why I say it's so important. Like the old saying, you know, a tree is nothing without its roots, and that's the same for everything. Like I said, our heritage, our culture, our history, you know, further back than just what we know in America, and all kind of things. So music is the same way. This doo-wop and blues and R&B and all these, I mean, I'm sorry, and rock and roll and jazz, these all pave ways to the music we listen to today. You know, hip hop, R&B, and, you know, funk, soul, all that, you know, house, all that music that came after these musics that were, you know, pioneering or being pioneered by African Americans at this time period. So The downside of this though was that a lot of African Americans made hit songs at small record labels, and with anything, you know, like today, which actually it was probably a lot easier to steal things back in the day. You know, there would be all the major labels were owned by white Americans, and white Americans at the major labels, it was so easy because doo-wop was so simple that they would take it and re-record it, the song, and add a whole bunch of, you know, high production, high production with a lot of instruments and a lot of people, and they had the revenue to pay people to do that these other smaller African American record labels, or just record labels in general, did not have. That they would steal a lot of songs. So, you know, this was the gift and the curse of doo-wop. And, you know, I really don't even like to say that, but it really was the gift and the curse of doo-wop. There's nothing wrong with doo-wop, but the way that doo-wop was made, the simplicity of it was actually its gift, but it was also its curse, that it could be stole by, you know, white America at the time. That was very, you know, the music was very segregated between African Americans and white Americans at that time. And a majority of the things that we created, you know, they just took, and they had the power at the time and they just took it. We created it and they just took it. So, you know, a lot of the songs, like I said, were stolen and in this era. And, you know, there's a lot of songs such as, I want to say, the Moon Glows, you know, there's a Sincerely song, you know, covered by the McGuire sisters in 1955. And a lot of white Americans adopted the doo-wop style, you know, and this was most notably the Italian American community, you know, adopted the doo-wop style, and it is still used and is done today. And back then, you know, a lot of Italian Americans and a lot of white Americans would take a lot of our styles and then they would use them and get famous off of them. And who knows, some people in the world think some musics are, you know, created by other people and they were really created by us. So it's just history, it's just do, it's who created it. And you know, doo-wop has ascended over time, and doo-wop is still used and done, like I said, today in a lot of things that we don't even notice, and a lot of music that we don't even notice. And it transcended from the 30s and 40s and 50s to the 60s, where it sort of was stationary in the Motown in the Midwest in Detroit, and it was really big there for a time. And then in the 70s, it migrated, you know, the most famous or the most notable was the Philly sound, and it was sound from, you know, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, you know, Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, the major city Philadelphia in Pennsylvania for people outside of America, and it was called the Philly sound. And you know, then it went on to the 90s, where a lot of R&B, you know, African American R&B groups used it, and soul groups used it, and all kinds of sort of things. So today you learned about doo-wop. I love doo-wop. You know, I love doo-wop. What's another one I can think of? Let's see a song. I used to like, is it not Billie Holiday, dang, I forget his name, but he sang a song that I really love so much, and it just sounds so beautiful. It just sounds like so timeless, and it's like, the music didn't sound so beautiful to where it touched your soul, you know, like when I hear the song, I feel like, dang, I was in the room with that person, and I just love that recording era. Even though it might not be the best sound, it touches your heart so much. It's crazy, and I really love it. And I love the way African Americans were singing from their heart at that time. You know, not that they're not doing it now, but they're doing a lot less than what they were doing back in the day. So, as always, one love to all my black people, to all my African people around the world. Yo, maybe we can start a doo-wop group. Who wants to start a doo-wop group? Who wants to go on the side of the block today and start a doo-wop group, and let's bring doo-wop back? Who wants to do that? Yo, I can be the lead singer, and you guys, the rest of you guys, the audience, all my African people and whoever else is not of African descent watching, yo, maybe y'all can be my backup. Yo, I like that. Don't you like that? And maybe we'll be called, what's the name we're gonna be called? Maybe we'll be called the Chocolate Drop Boys. And maybe girls. If there's girls who want to get into it too, maybe girls too. Or maybe we call it the Brown Sugar Boys. How about the Brown Sugar Boys? You like that? I like that too. Yo, to all my Africans, one love. Yo, may 100 years of gold come your way, and I'm out. Peace.